You're about to learn the perfect surf stance. I'm Chris Mills with surfstrengthcoach.com. Me and my couple of surfboards are about to show you what the perfect surf stance is. And by the way, like, subscribe, download the Surf Athlete app. It's free and there's all sorts of rad paid content. So this perfect surf stance, there is no one perfect ideal. There is nuance to this. I would suggest you go to read the blog that is linked somewhere below. It's on my website again, surfstrengthcoach.com, because there's all sorts of details. There's visual representations, Machado, Andy Irons, Ethan Ewing. I'm referencing a lot of this. So there's not a perfect, singular one position. Surfing is variable. There's style, there's flow, there's fluid, nuance. But there are big distinctions between an efficient, progressive, capable of improving surf stance versus the poo man stance that plagues this beginner intermediate spectrum. Because what works for a beginner, getting on solid or unstable, balancing on top of water first time, what works for that in order to successfully ride the first wave ever doesn't necessarily work for progression. So with all that said, let's get into it. Let's help you change your surf stance so you can improve your surfing. Your surf stance. We need to take you from this to this. What are we doing? Surfing is all about creating forward momentum on a wave face, right? Inertia forward, down the line. So we can initially step this back and relate it towards surfing or walking. If I'm walking or running that way, I'm coordinating my body to go that direction, right? I don't walk that way doing this, right? If I was to ride a bicycle, I would be going this way, not sitting sideways on a bicycle or doing this on a bicycle.
Parko is a great example of this directionally forward facing. Rear arm is always in the direction, his chest shoulder line is facing forwards, the back knee is directionally facing forwards, the pelvis, everything is directionally oriented at creating momentum forward in the direction he wants to go. Notice he's never slinging his back leg backwards, not slinging the back arm. Everything is forward intent.
So since we're trying to inertia, momentum down the line, we want to start going from wide, half of the body facing backwards, half forwards. I'm trying to go forward down the line. What we need to do is start to get directionally forward facing in an effort. Now mind you, when you're going on your backhand, things are a little clunkier, and we need to preface this talking about shortboards. I don't longboard. I can't, there's all sorts of narrow stances, and we're talking about shortboards generally for this kind of intermediate spectrum looking to progress. So we really need to differentiate between poo man stance, right? Butt back, leg backwards, one leg forwards, one arm backwards. There's a huge distinction from this to let me orient myself, my body forward to help create inertia and momentum forward. That is a hugely distinct difference just going from here to here. We'll get into this in a little more detail, but if that back foot and back knee are pointed backwards in the opposite direction you want to go, you are literally stopping your progression and you are halting any forward momentum you have on the wave face. So what we can start to agree upon, again, go watch the blog or read the blog, and I reference all these movements. We want to start getting, think more of boxer, athlete, sprinter, any of these, dancer even. It is, I need to orient myself in a position so that my joints are stacked in order to begin moving rotationally and vertically, right? Poo man, I can't rotate, and I can only poo man harder to move vertically. Whereas if I start to stack, oriented forward, orthopedically it's doing beneficial things to joints and their ability to rotate. So now here I can start to be a spring up and down, and I can start to rotate. That is a very big simplification of what we are trying to do. We're trying to go from half of the body pointed backwards to orienting things forward directionally where I want to go. So as a surfer, you need to be able to compress and extend, you need to be able to lean into bottom turns, you need to be able to twist, right? What that's essentially saying is I need to be able to move my joints in all directions three-dimensionally. Back to the poo man, the way it is placing your joints in relationship to one another is preventing you from being able to fluidly move up and down. It's preventing you from twisting, and you can't essentially lean, right? That's why we keep coming back to, we need to get into, start thinking of your surf stance as more of athletic, a spring. We are trying to be a spring. We are trying to be able to move fluidly. We need to be soft and reactive because we're reacting to the wave. And if I'm in a stacked position, I'm able to start moving fluidly through a variety of positions. You can think of a golf swing, okay? Now, posturally, if I go into a poo man stance, and the reason we're talking about golf swing is because it's rotationally based, and the ability to rotate fluidly is really relevant for surfing. If I get into a poo man stance and I think of a golf swing, how stiff and uncomfortable does that feel? It sucks. Now, if I was to get into a more stacked, more neutral, aligned posture, I can start to swing. Now if I start freeing up this back hip even by slightly bringing that back foot slightly forwards, I free up even more orthopedic range of motion. If I do a golf swing with my back foot facing backwards in the traditional poo man stance, back knee backwards, back foot backwards, ooh, that sucks. As soon as I start to bring it forward so I can orient the body slightly forward, I have all this freedom of movement. And then if I start letting my back foot even pivot, I have even more range of motion, okay? So we need to start thinking this efficient surf stance is a posture that not only looks good, but allows your body to be a spring and allows freedom of movement. The poo man is literally not that. Imagine me sitting at a desk, right? Grinding away on the computer. This is literally how people then start surfing. And they wonder why it's not working. Because we need to start orienting ourselves forward. So we can start getting into foot position. Now, 5'11", 5'8". Back foot, really you want just about as far back as possible if you're starting to do turns and maneuvers. One thing that intermediate surfers need to come to understand is this back foot is not static. Back foot can move forward if I'm in like this barrel crouch trying to make speed. It'll move all the way back at the back of the tail pad if I'm starting to do bigger turns. If I'm in a little barrel crouch, I'll even pivot up onto that big toe and knuckle of the big toe to where my heel's not even on there. So that back foot is starting to move. Now do that golf swing again and let that back foot start to move. If I'm a spring and I compress, keeping that back foot stuck the whole time can actually be really rough on a knee joint. So if we start letting it pivot, if my back foot is backwards and I start trying to collapse, I'm really putting a lot of strain through that entire medial meniscus, meniscus as well as MCL. You see a lot of blown out knees. So back foot on the tail pad, okay? That's just giving you maneuverability because the foot is essentially over the fins. You can see on both my boards, different sizes, but my stance is the same distance. My front foot is here, my front foot is here. I don't think you can see the indentations picking up on camera, but there's literally dents. The way I kind of instruct people to do that, figure out the distance for you, because if you're a 5'4" female versus a 6'4" male, you're gonna have a different foot distance. If you take a step forward, just a normal step, right? And then make that another half step bigger, that's probably about where you are. So normal step forward, that's 1. I make it about 1.5, 1.25 to 1.5. That's about where you need to be. Now, if we start thinking of this band as the stringer, I'll even place it beside this board. Back foot on the tail pad, front foot, I know where it goes. Now, foot position. Front foot, you're gonna see variance with this, but you really want perpendicular to almost 30 or 45 degrees angled to the stringer, forwards, right? What this slight angle forward does is frees up range of motion in the pelvis. If it's stuck here, it's driving me into some internal rotation, and I'm not able to then move into further internal rotation of the femur in the acetabulum, the hip socket, so it's kind of restricting me. Soon as I tilt that foot or angle it slightly forwards, it frees me up. Back foot, don't want the back foot backwards. You will occasionally see this. Everybody's gonna be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. I don't see surfer pros doing that. There's always this nuance. You'll be able to find some singular screen grab off a video where somebody's doing something different for what I'm saying. These are commonalities, okay? Back foot backwards is an issue because of how it then rotates the head of the femur in the socket. It's now, I'm already driven into external rotation, so I can't bring the pelvis around because it's driving me into more external rotation, so I sacrifice the knee joint. I'm already back foot backwards, so it's extreme end ranges of tibial external rotation, and I do an MCL. So we want the back foot perpendicular to the stringer or slightly forwards, because now I'm front on. Now I can be a spring. Now I can twist, and it all happens even more freely if I start letting that back foot move. Oh, barrel, I need to get speed, boom, crouch, back on to turn. So it starts to be the foot position because of the kinetic chain, and it's how a foot position, joint position, joint position, joint position all influence one another. It's much more optimal to have slight angle forward. Cool? Perpendicular is cool. Slightly angled forward, probably a little more joint friendly, allows you to be more easily front on. Back foot backwards can be destructive, not only skill wise and progression wise, but orthopedically in terms of joints. So what it comes down to is your surf stance, your posture, is where you are initiating all movement. And if you are stuck in a stiff, rigid position, you are limiting your access potential to all movement. So you're limiting your access to actually surf well, right? And another understanding of kinetic chain, you see a lot of people stuck in this Pooh Man stance for a total lack of ankle range of motion. That's why in my Surf Athlete, download the Surf Athlete app if you don't have it. In the Surf Athlete 12-week program, the body weight programs, all the stretching programs, there's heaps of ankle and hip ranges of motion and stretching and protocols, because ankle dorsiflexion, it's the ability to bring the knee over the shin. In surfing, there's a lot of knee over foot action, okay? If that becomes limited, if I can't bring my knee forward at all, the only thing I can do is shove my ass out backwards and Pooh Man. So again, going back to the health of your body, your mobility, the health of your joints, your ability to move influences your skill. That's why I'm always talking about health and fitness are the underpinnings of skill. You can work on skill, you can work on technique, but your body can limit your ability to move the way the skill and technique requires. If I'm desk worker, I go into Poo Man. I can't bring, because my ankles are locked up, I can't bring my knees any further forward, boom, because I'm running into bone or restriction of tissue. Then the only way I can get lower is to stick my butt out and hinge at the torso. We all know these surfboards. Yes, yes. So suddenly, if I'm able to start to orient things forward and I'm still a bit locked, at least I'm more front on. But if you can start restoring the ability for the hips to move and the ankles to move, suddenly, wow, being a spring, I can do this. I can surf. I'm not stuck forever looking like I'm taking a dump while I surf. So, ranting done. Start watching surf videos, go to the blog, watch the surf videos that I reference, and start looking at surfers in a different way in terms of their biomechanics and how it is a momentum-driven action going forward. And we do that by coordinating our postures forward, not throwing half of our body backwards the whole time. Start to orient, see what your feet position are. You start practicing that stuff from the pop-up into correct foot position. Your ability to move dictates your ability to surf. It's another reason you should download my app and start getting into some of the programs. But changing your stance changes your ability to surf. So this is a really, really relevant starting point and a no bull process to what a surf stance actually is. And if you start watching pro surfers or good surfers at your local break, you're gonna see forward, coordinated arms forward, pelvis more forward, knees likely forward, but then when we go turns and stuff, generally speaking, it is this forward, spring-like, athletic position so I can surf and access all ranges of motion and not have to look like this. Rant done. I hope you did it. I hope this enlightened you. Throw a like, a subscribe, a thumbs up, leave some comments, share this video with your buddy that surfs like he's taking a dump. And winds look good today, actually. I'm probably gonna go surf, solid swell. I'll be going with this one. It's a Clayton Custom, kind of off those Weber Electra models. It looks funky, but it goes wild. Look at that tail rocker. Oh, good board. And I've also finally been surfing, this is the 5/8 Fishbeard. Great, if you know how to surf a twin fin, this is a great off the rack board. I have surfed this anywhere from good 2 foot to good 4 to 5 foot, like good 4 to 5 foot reef break, and it handles really well. I would take this to Indonesia with me. I will take this to Central America on our coaching trips. All right, if you've watched this far, I can't believe it. That's astounding. Your attention span is incredible compared to the average YouTube watcher. So fix your surf stance, fix your surfing, download my app, join us on a surf coaching trip. Peace.